betrayal, karma. In a new beginning, my parents pressured me to forgive my brother's affair with my ex-wife and her pregnancy. Then they demanded I support them financially. My wife, Amy, 26, cheated on me with my brother, Jake, 26, which led to my recent divorce. My family chose them over me, and yes, it truly happened. But karma had other plans. To help you understand how my entire life culminated in this awful betrayal, let's start from the beginning. Jake, born when I was 8, was always the golden child as we grew up in suburban Boston. My parents, Robert, 58, and Sarah, 56, seemed to overlook me. While not overtly cruel, I was consistently an afterthought. This reality was drilled into us throughout our childhood. I still vividly remember winning my first science fair in 6th grade. I spent months building a working model of the solar system, complete with orbital calculations and revolving planets. I won first prize and a special commendation for mathematical precision. Jake had a t-ball practice, not even a game, just practice so my parents didn't attend the ceremony. Our living room walls were covered with Jake's participation ribbons, while my award sat unopened on the mantel for a week before disappearing into the basement. Our entire childhood was shaped by this. Jake's C+ grades were celebrated, but my straight A's received distracted nods. My mother even worried that my advanced placement classes might make Jake feel bad about his regular ones. For his 16th birthday, Jake received a new car, supposedly to boost his confidence, according to Dad. Meanwhile, I had to work part-time at 16 to save for college and buy my own clothes. High school graduation was tough. Instead of seeing me receive my diploma and give my valedictorian address, my parents spent most of the ceremony photographing a 10-year-old Jake playing in the stands. They didn't even hear me announce my MIT scholarship because Jake was whining about being bored. A celebration dinner for Jake's early baseball season became a party because Jake seems a little down about all your achievements. Mom even encouraged me to downplay my college intentions. I barely registered my MIT partial scholarship acceptance because Jake had just made the junior baseball team. That's nice, honey, but did you hear Jake might be a starting pitcher next season? Mom said. I recall, it was then I realized nothing I did would ever be enough. I was the practice child, the test subject for Jake, their true parenting endeavor. With my scholarship savings from 3 part-time jobs and a fierce resolve, I left for MIT at 18. My parents left early on moving day because Jake had a summer league game, not even helping me unpack. Those college years were transformative. For the first time, I was judged solely on my own merits. I discovered my aptitude for software architecture, immersing myself in computer science, and graduating with honors. Several IT organizations were interested in my undergraduate thesis on distributed systems optimization. By graduation, I had 5 job offers. A part of me still hoped things might improve, so I chose a promising company in Boston, partly because it was near home. Within 2 years, I led my own development team, and by my 5th year, I was the youngest senior developer in the company's history. My folks were too busy helping Jake with his 3rd college major change to truly understand what I did for a living. The turning point in Betrayal 4 years ago, at a small coffee shop near my office, the real turning point in my life occurred. I met Amy there. She was working as a barista while completing her teaching degree. She somehow remembered every regular's order and a personal detail about them. She later confessed she'd been writing encouraging notes on my coffee cups for weeks before finally agreeing to a date. Hadn't even noticed. So focused was I on my work. Our first date lasted 6 hours. We talked about everything, our families, anxieties, dreams. When I told her about my early years, she truly seemed to understand my family issues. She said they're blind. They have no idea what they were missing. I felt seen for the first time. The following year felt unreal. We cooked elaborate meals, spent weekends exploring Boston's hidden bookstores, and hiked in New Hampshire. She pushed me to go for a big promotion at work, helped me prepare for interviews, and celebrated my success more than anyone. When I asked her to marry me after 14 months, she shed tears of joy. saying she'd been hoping I would. At the time, I thought our wedding was small and perfect. When my family arrived, they spent the entire reception talking about Jake's new job. Opportunity in California. Mom actually cut short Amy's father's toast to show everyone a text message from Jake about his second interview. In hindsight, I should have seen it as a warning sign, but Amy laughed it off, calling their dedication to Jake's sweet. Our marriage was everything I could have imagined for 3 years. We started discussing having children, bought a lovely condo in Cambridge, and traveled when we could. Amy made our house feel like the cozy, caring home I never had as a child, decorating it with pictures of our trips and planting a small container garden on our balcony. "We're a team," she constantly asserted. "Us against the world." Then Jake got in touch last year. After failing in California, the startup culture wasn't his vibe. He returned to Boston. He wrote me a long email, expressing how much he missed his older brother and wanted to mend our relationship. "Family should stick together," he wrote. After a week of thinking, Amy urged me to give him a chance. "People change," she said. "Maybe. They've come to terms with their issues." Against my better judgment, I agreed to dinner with Jake. It was awkward, but the first meeting seemed promising. Jake appeared to have matured and become more self-aware. He said he wanted to make amends, and acknowledged he'd had it easy as a child. A week later, I introduced him to Amy, and they clicked immediately, too well. As I would later learn, at first, everything seemed perfect. Jake would stop by for dinner a couple of times a week. He seemed genuinely interested in my work, brought wine, and entertained us with tales of his California exploits. He even stood up for me when our parents started showing their usual favoritism at Sunday dinners. In fact, I began to think we might finally be true brothers. The unraveling and the truth subtly, however, things began to change. Jake started unexpectedly, visiting our home, sometimes while I was still at work. Amy said they were just hanging out while she graded papers, and that it was nice to have company. He would stay for dinner, use my coffee mug, chat with my wife, and share inside jokes. I chose to ignore the warning signs. Their sudden silence when I walked into a room. Amy's phone abruptly turning screen down when I sat next to her, their knowing glances at dinner, and their coincidental meetings at the coffee shop or grocery store. The pregnancy announcement followed. We were eating dinner at home. Naturally, Jake was present when Amy broke the news. While I was ecstatic, Jake's reaction should have told me everything. He wasn't surprised at all. Instead, he smiled with a knowing satisfaction that made my stomach flip. Jake was there all the time after that. He'd talk about how involved he'd be in our child's life, touch Amy's stomach without asking, and make remarks about the baby's future. Despite my efforts to organize a romantic baby moon trip, Jake inadvertently invited himself. "The baby needs both of us," he said, and Amy agreed. I still remember the night I found out. I had been lying awake, mentally replaying months of suspicious events. Amy was sleeping peacefully next to me, her phone charging on the nightstand. In our 6 years together, I had never once looked at her phone. I believed in trust and privacy, but I had to know. They had hundreds of messages dating back 6 months. Secret meetings at hotels while I was at work. Plans for their future together. Conversations about the baby, their baby, they had begun. Sharing a bed soon after he returned to my life. They had intended to tell me after the baby was born, assuming I'd be too attached to the child to leave. So, the pregnancy wasn't an accident. Message by message, I felt my world crash down as I read every single one until dawn. When she woke up, I was sitting in our reading chair with Amy's phone in my hand. Immediately knew what I'd found. She sobbed. "We didn't intend for this to happen. Jake and I just clicked. He knows me better than you ever could." In fact, she uttered the most overused phrase in the history of affairs. "We were going to tell you. But we didn't want to worry." "You after I became pregnant?" I called my parents that morning, hoping they would finally support me. I was stunned by their answer. Mom said Jake made a mistake, but he's going to be a father now. You must forgive him and act like the bigger person. Consider the baby. Consider the grandchild. A grandchild produced when their younger son was having an affair with their older son's wife. They were protecting him once more. Some things never change. That day I called a divorce attorney and checked into a hotel. Amy took turns pleading for my forgiveness and condemning me for abandoning our family. At work, Jake tried to corner me, claiming we needed to have a man-to-man conversation. I reported him for workplace harassment and had security escort him out. Going through a divorce was a nightmare. Amy and Jake claimed their affair started because of my emotional unavailability, portraying me as domineering and emotionally abusive. According to my parents' testimony, I had always been difficult and had lifelong jealousy of Jake. Mom even blamed the mediator for the whole problem, saying I should have been more considerate of Jake's demands. After that, I stopped negotiating. After we went to court, Amy managed to get a respectable settlement. Seems that in Massachusetts, having an affair with your husband's brother does not waive alimony. Still, I had some small successes, like keeping the condo and most of my salary. I am currently 34, divorced, and completely estranged from my family. I've changed my email, blacklisted their numbers, and told building security never to let them in. Some days, I question if there was any way I could have avoided this, if I'd been a better spouse, brother, or son. However, I later realized I wasn't the one who deceived everyone. I didn't turn family against family. They say everyone eventually experiences karma. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I do know I'm sick of being the family's scapegoat, having to be understanding while everyone else gets away with ruining lives. I've lived my entire life as the one passed over, the second best option, and the afterthought. No more. The lawsuit and its aftermath just, when I thought things couldn't get worse, it got even more bizarre. Update 1. I assumed my family would finally leave me alone after the divorce. It's been about a month, and I've been focusing on healing and moving on. However, they clearly had different ideas. Yesterday morning, my office receptionist messaged me during an important meeting with my development team. She said, my mother, Sarah, was in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. She reportedly spent over an hour there, telling everyone she just needed to talk to her son. My team, having seen Jake's previous incident at work, could tell how uneasy I was. After ignoring her and continuing my work, my phone began ringing with calls from unidentified numbers. It seems my mother had enlisted several family members to try and reach me. I thought it might be work-related when I finally answered. But it was my Aunt Linda, 54, with whom I hadn't spoken in years. Without even a hello, she began, your brother and Amy are really struggling. Jake still hasn't found a job, and the settlement money is running low. Well, no one wants to hire him after that. Jake's reputation appears to have been ruined by his affair with Amy, which somehow spread through his professional network. Several prospective employers withdrew their offers after background checks. I couldn't help but notice the irony. For once, his actions had tangible repercussions. But here's where it gets ridiculous. In addition to buying groceries and paying their rent, my parents have also been paying for Amy's prenatal medical expenses. My father's retirement funds are being depleted, and they're now panicking as they run out of money themselves. Their solution? They want me to provide financial assistance for the woman who deceived me and the brother who ruined my marriage. My mother didn't just show up at my office. She had a plan. She chose to ambush me at work knowing I wouldn't return their calls. When I finally went down to the lobby to handle the problem, she threatened to stay until closing time. Then, she launched into a prepared speech on forgiveness and family responsibilities. She conveniently forgot that I had to pay for my own college education when she remarked, your father and I have always provided for both our sons. It's time for you to take charge and support your brother during this difficult time. What I was hearing was unbelievable. A rough patch. My wife became pregnant after he had an affair with her, and he tried to claim the child as his own. Is a purposeful set of decisions, not a rough stretch. She foolishly responded, well, if you had paid more attention to Amy's needs, ... I interrupted her before calling security and urged her to leave. Before she left, she loudly announced, in the lobby, that I was abandoning my own brother and his unborn child. Despite their support, a number of my coworkers found this humiliating. Jake sent me an email later that evening. To get around my blocks, he had created a new account. Half-hearted apologies and barely disguised requests for financial assistance. were mixed in the email. He wrote about Amy's difficulties with her pregnancies, something I was unaware of, how they couldn't pay for proper medical treatment, and how the stress was impacting my future nephew or niece. The attachment, a sonogram image, was what truly caught my attention. Even though the manipulation techniques were clear, they were attacking me emotionally with their unborn child as a result of their affair. In an attempt to take a new approach, my father arrived at my apartment complex the following day, pretending to be there only to talk. I declined to let him in when the front desk called. Then, for 2 hours, he stood in the lobby telling everyone who would listen how his successful son was causing his brother's family to suffer. Since then, I've had to inform my building management of the circumstances and ask them to bar any of my family members from entering. I don't see any other choice, even though it's awkward to publicly discuss my private issues this way. Additionally, the harassment has spread to social media. On Facebook, Amy has been making vague accusations against me, claiming she was abandoned throughout her pregnancy by her emotionally unavailable husband. Jake has been reposting these, adding his own remarks about how some people need to step up and take responsibility. I find it infuriating how they have twisted this story. They portray me as the bad guy because I didn't provide for the people who deceived me. They seem to believe I have a duty to save them from their own mess, simply because I'm succeeding professionally. I've started keeping a record of everything: emails, workplace incidents, and social media posts. According to my lawyer, if they try anything legal, we might need it. She is especially worried they'll try to use the legal system to get more support. The worst part, I've received messages from certain family friends and distant relatives encouraging me to put family first and be the bigger person. They don't seem to realize that Jake and Amy ruined my last remnant of a family. Even though I'm steadfast in my resolve not to help them, the persistent harassment is wearing me down. To cope with all of this, I've been seeing a therapist and I'm considering looking for a new job in a different place. While I don't like the idea of fleeing, I'm at a loss on what to do to find peace. My own family has descended to a level I never imagined, but here we are. They are not merely pleading for assistance. They are attempting to intimidate and coerce me into giving money to the same individuals who ruined my life. I have a feeling this isn't over yet. Desperate people do desperate things and they're growing desperate. Update 2. Suddenly, my former partner's attorney sent me a notice. Jake and Amy were trying to sue me for further support, citing increased medical needs and changed circumstances. My lawyer, who had been recording all of their harassment incidents, was enraged but ready. Last week was the scheduled court date. It was surreal to enter that courtroom. Amy was dressed to highlight her obvious pregnancy.
Ow.
Our parents sat directly behind them, looking smugly arrogant, while Jake sat behind her in our father's old suit. First up was their lawyer, who told a story that almost made me chuckle. They claimed that because they had undervalued the emotional toll of the divorce, the initial payment was insufficient. They said that my pattern of workplace harassment had prevented Jake from finding a job and even implied that the stress caused by my vindictive behavior was putting Amy's pregnancy in jeopardy because it allegedly required specialized care due to high-risk issues. The way my lawyer responded was incredible. She started by playing surveillance tape from my office building, which included my mother's theatrical displays, Jake's violent conduct, and Amy's attempts to enter through the rear door. She then presented social media evidence, including a detailed chronology of their campaign of online abuse. Her financial records were the true surprise. Jake had rejected multiple jobs as being beneath him, not because he was having trouble finding employment as a result of my pestering. For the court's pity, Amy had turned down a full-time teaching job to maintain her jobless, pregnant woman status. Amy's prenatal records, which revealed a perfectly healthy pregnancy with typical expenses, were the most incriminating of all. They had been playing games with their unborn child. The judge was clearly upset, interrupted their attorney when he attempted to explain that emotional discomfort warranted more help. Your client seemed to have committed perjury, counselor. Do you want to keep going in this direction? There. Lawyer returned with a somber expression after a short break. Jake was pale, Amy was crying, and their united front had fallen apart. I was pleasantly surprised by the judge's decision. In addition to rejecting their motion, he also lowered my alimony payments by 60%. Parties who misuse the legal system are not viewed favorably by this court, he said. Mr. Smith appears to be the victim of a well-planned scheme to exploit him financially and emotionally. The fallout happened quickly. Ami decided she could work after Jake unexpectedly landed a job in retail. In their final message, my parents accused me of destroying Jake's last chance and assured me they would never forgive me for abandoning my family. Citing irreconcilable differences regarding truthfulness, their attorney resigned from their representation. My organization increased security and barred them from the property. I learned that my parents had taken out a second mortgage to pay for legal bills and that Jake and Amy were arguing over money all the time via common acquaintances. Finally, I feel like I can breathe. I can rebuild my savings thanks to the lower expenses, and I'm thinking about accepting a job offer in Seattle. Letting someone suffer the repercussions of their actions is sometimes the finest form of retaliation. However, I have a feeling this story is far from over. A true new beginning. Bait 3. I want to start by thanking this community. Your support and comments have kept me strong throughout this entire fiasco. Here is what may be my story's last. Update: Aunt Linda, my father's sister, unexpectedly contacted me a few weeks after the court triumph. I was interested enough to listen to her because she has never been involved in family conflict. A huge error. Is trying to seem worried. She began. Your father isn't getting any younger. His health is suffering as a result of all this stress. She continued by talking about how my parents would lose their retirement funds, how they had to refinance their home to pay for Jake and Amy's expenses, and how families should stick together no matter what. She changed strategy when I didn't. React with pity right away. Did you realize that every night your mother sobs herself to sleep? Even though they may have acted inappropriately against you as a child, they are still your parents. Jake remains your brother, despite everything that has transpired. At last, I cut her off. What took place? Are you referring to the months? He spent having sex with my wife, getting her pregnant, and then attempting to claim the child as his own. That's what took place. I was astounded by her response. Well, perhaps you could have been more involved in your marriage. In fact, she attempted to place the blame for their affair on me, claiming that my jealousy of Jake as a child had produced a toxic environment that pushed them together. It was so ridiculous I actually laughed. Another member of the family was attempting to deceive me into taking accountability for Jake and Amy's behavior. What's different this time? It didn't move me at all. Linda, I asked, why don't you assist them if you're so worried about their financial status? Your husband's legal practice is doing well, and you possess 3 rental properties. Why am I the only one who is supposed to stand by them? Oh, it was different. She sputtered, adding that I had a special obligation as Jake's brother. She said she didn't want to take sides when I asked her why she hadn't stepped in during all of this. But now you're picking sides, I said. You decided to come to me and demand that I pay for their consequences rather than admit the harm they caused. She then revealed what she believed to be her secret weapon. Your father is thinking of retiring early because of stress. It's a house. May need to be sold. Seeing your folks lose everything because you're too proud to assist what you want. I said, no, Linda. They're losing everything as a result of their decision to condone Jake's actions. Once more, they, like Jake and Amy, are paying the price for their own decisions. And what do you know? I'm not responsible for fixing that. When I'm older and alone, family is all we have in the end, she emphasized, threatening that I will regret this. No, I replied. Self-respect is all we have in the end, and I'm finally choosing to keep mine. In addition to blocking her, I hung up her call. Her call, however, had the unanticipated benefit of providing me with clarity. I felt truly free for the first time from the obligation and guilt that had plagued me since. I was a young child. I accepted the Seattle job offer later that day. The change of location feels appropriate, and the firm is providing a substantial promotion. I'm starting over and selling the condo. Yesterday, my coworkers threw me a farewell party. I learned what true support looks like from these individuals, who supported me during the darkest months of my life. With the straightforward statement, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it, my closest colleague gave me a card that was signed by everyone. I've discovered that family is about mutual support, respect, and trust, rather than blood. The friends who supported me, the coworkers who shielded me, and ultimately myself proved to be my true family. I'm done. To my parents, Jake, Amy, and now Linda, your decisions brought you to this point, and you are responsible for the results. I'm not available to be your ATM or your scapegoat anymore. For my part, I'm excited for my new life in Seattle. I'm thrilled about the initiatives that await me at my company's renowned West Coast location. More significantly, I can't wait to create a life in which I'm respected for who I am, rather than compared to someone else's golden child. Writing my last post from an empty condo, surrounded by stacked boxes, seems oddly appropriate. I start driving west tomorrow. I'll be looking back on my past life with all of its suffering and family strife. Yes, their baby was born last week. In case you were wondering, no, I haven't contacted anyone or seen any pictures. I've closed that chapter of my life. Again, I want to thank Reddit for supporting me over this journey. When I was having self-doubt, your encouragement and counsel kept me going. Anyone going through a similar situation should know that their value transcends their family's treatment of them. Walking away is sometimes the most self-loving thing you can do. It's time to go. Cheers to fresh starts. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.